Hello everyone, first news update for 29th of April 2025. Now it's 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and I hope you will find this update informative and interesting. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary on both platforms, YouTube and Rumble. It might help with the algorithm. And dear friends, if you are watching this video on YouTube, please do me a favor if you can and switch to Rumble channel of mine and watch this update there. Link is under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. Also let me tell you that yesterday I had the first episode of evening news on Rumble live stream, and it already has about 850 views, which is I guess not bad for the first episode. Hopefully this program will gain some momentum and will help to further develop this project. This live stream, this program evening news, will be live streamed from Monday to Friday on Rumble channels at 7 o'clock Moscow time, including today. And so yes, if you can, please switch to my Rumble channel and watch videos there. And I will also say that today I will have a second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And if you are not a member of our Patreon and Boosty community, please consider to join. Of course, in case you want to support my work, because unlike Rumble, which is a free subscription, although you can become premium subscriber also if you want to, but mainly it's a free subscription, isn't it? Patreon and Boosty is a paid subscription. These platforms are created for support of the creators. Links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment in case you are interested. That being said, let's go through some news now. And first report from RT and many other media outlets here in Russia and worldwide, of course, paid attention to this development, that Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict for 3 days in honor of their 80th anniversary of their defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. The truce will last from May 8 to May 10th. The Kremlin has stated that Putin is said to have announced the ceasefire based on humanitarian considerations and has ordered the suspension of all military actions against Ukraine's forces from midnight on May 7th to 8th to midnight on May 10th to 11th. So it's a 72-hour ceasefire. Kremlin noted that Moscow expects the Ukrainian side to abide by their truce and warned that if Kiev's forces violate it, the Russian military will give an adequate and effective response. So if Kiev regime's forces will continue their military operations, the Russian side will of course retaliate, no doubts about that. This is second time, dear friends, in the last couple of weeks when Russia is adopting this method, temporary truce. First time it was during their Easter celebration, now during their celebration of victory in a great patriotic war. And I don't know what you think about it, but opinions here in Russia are divided on this matter. I checked many comment sections in Russian segment of internet on this topic, and well, many people are not that happy. Seems like that Russia is initiating ceasefire with the Nazi fascist regime, terrorist regime of Zelensky, and it's also Nazi fascist Western backers. But yet again, this is a decision of the Russian president, and it is what it is. I guess this initiative is based not just on humanitarian some reasonings, but also on some practical moments. For example, during the celebration of victory in the Great Patriotic War, delegations from dozens and dozens of countries will visit Russia, Moscow included, including heads of states. And obviously Moscow would like to see ceasefire at that point, so that all these delegations that will visit Russia will be safe and secure. Of course, Russian side will provide safety anyways. Russian side will do its best, and all the security services will be on high alert. But I mean, ceasefire will be helpful in that regard too. Although, according to reports that we are seeing right now, Kyiv regime rejected this ceasefire. So therefore, I don't know what to expect. We will find out. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Kamenka settlement in the Kharkov region. Let me show you on the map this settlement. This is a northern flank of Kupiansk direction, I will say. So this is Kamenka, by the way, Kamenka area, which is liberated now by Russian forces. Also, we have reports that Russian armed forces advancing in the Chisov Yar area on the northern western flank and the southern western flank of Chisov Yar, which is also true. And according to some military experts, Russian armed forces might liberate Chisov Yar completely from enemy forces before Victory Day celebration in next several days. Let's see. It is a possibility for sure. Although Kyiv regime might send additional troops, they might sacrifice another couple of thousands of their troops to maintain their presence in the Chisov Yar. Let's see how things develop. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that last night, early hours of this morning, there was explosions in Kyiv. No specifics, but I guess Russian armed forces were conducting long-range precise strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of our enemy. And during the day, probably we will learn some details of these strikes. And of course, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X page and in the next updates. Also, interesting news from the newspaper that Kyiv regime acknowledged, Kyiv regime's so-called media acknowledged that yet another Su-27 fighter jet of Kyiv regime was destroyed by Russian forces. And yesterday, video started circulating on internet. This is the video, by the way, on which you can see plane is crashing, engulfed in the fire. And allegedly, this was the Su-27 that was intercepted by Russian forces. This happened, you might be surprised, but according to preliminary data, this plane crashed in Cherkasy area. And yesterday, I reported on my Telegram and Twitter X pages that Russian armed forces were conducting long-range drone strikes in Cherkasy and Kyiv directions, and maybe Su-27 was operating as an interceptor of Russian drones. That's the possibility. And during this time, either Russian air defense systems, long-range air defense systems, or Russian fighter jets locked it and intercepted with long-range air-to-air missiles. No specifics on that. But if you take a look at the map, by the way, I mean, Cherkasy is quite away from current line of contact. And in either ways, this should be long-range missile interceptor that Russia launched to take down this Su-27. According to reports, pilot of Su-27 managed to eject. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Russia's investigative committee reported on the number of Russians, civilians killed by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. About 50,000 people suffered from the actions of the Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region. 191 civilians were killed. Sergei Sukhostavets, head of the socio-political work department of the main military investigative directorate of the investigative committee of Russia, stated, we have a quote from his statement, since August 6, 2024, when invasion began in Kursk region, The death of 191 civilians in the Kursk region has been established. 372 people were injured, including 17 minors. In total, military investigative bodies have recognized and interviewed as victims about 50,000 people who suffered from the actions of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of the Kursk region, Sukhostavets said at the press conference. And I guess this is preliminary data, because there are many areas in the Kursk salient that is liberated now completely from enemy forces have to be checked still, demined, and therefore I'm afraid number of civilians that were killed by Kyiv regime's forces and NATO mercenaries in Kursk salient might increase significantly, but already numbers are horrifying, isn't it? It was a tragedy, and the Kyiv regime will pay heavy price. Everyone who was involved in authorizing this incursion hopefully will pay heavy price for their crimes against Russian Federation. I wonder if even single media outlet in the West will pay any attention to this information from Russian investigative committee. I don't think so. You tell me, dear friends, if you will see any article or any mentioning of crimes, war crimes that Kyiv regime committed in the Kursk salient area in Western media. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that Trump claims that Zelensky is ready to give up Crimea. And well, this is true. Trump actually claimed this yesterday during the live stream. I shared short video of Trump saying that Zelensky is coming to terms that Crimea has to be recognized as a Russian. But yet again, I mean, one thing is what Trump is saying, other is what Zelensky is saying, who is emboldened big time, by the way, by newly found great support of the globalists and globalist puppet regimes in Europe. First of all, UK, France, Germany, right? So therefore, as far as I can tell, every time Zelensky was asked about Crimea, he said that he is not going to recognize nothing as Russian territory. So therefore, Trump, on part of Trump, maybe this is just yet another misunderstanding of Zelensky. I don't know. We will find out. But Russian position, by the way, is very clear, that it's not just Crimea that has to be recognized as a Russian territory, because it is Russian territory according to Russian constitution, but also Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, DPR and LPR. And this is a principal stand of Russia. So I think it is a mistake on part of US, if US leadership really wants the escalation, that they are focused solely on Crimean topic. It's not just Crimea. Russia already publicly, openly and directly stated what is the Russia's principal stance in terms of de-escalating. And the foreign minister of Russian Federation, by the way, was asked about it by in Brazil, I believe, during the summit by media outlet, local media outlet. And let's go through some key points that the Russian foreign minister highlighted. So Lavrov outlines Russia's conditions for ending the Ukraine conflict. I did share this on my Telegram channel and Twitter X, by the way. So some of you might see it already. So Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, speaking to Brazil's O Globo newspaper during the BRICS summit, outlined Russia's key demands for ending the war in Ukraine. And there is a few points here, main points. So Ukraine must repeal its legal ban on negotiations with Russia. Some people may get confused while hearing this, but point is that when Zelensky had some legitimacy before his mandate expired, he issued decrees banning any negotiations with the Russian side. And now he cannot undo his own decrees because he no longer has legitimacy, at least from Russian standpoint, right? So this legal issue has to be dealt by Kyiv regime first, so that negotiations that could take place will have legal basement for that, right? That's why Moscow is time after time is pointing out this topic. Also, Second key point from Lavrov's statements, Ukraine must not join NATO and must maintain a neutral, non-aligned status, also long-standing position of Russia. Next one is Ukraine must address the consequences of the neo-Nazi regime in Kiev, including reversing laws and actions aimed at the elimination of the Russian language, media, culture, traditions, and the canonical Orthodox Church. And all this is under attack, by the way, in Ukraine. Orthodox Church is under attack, Russian language is under attack, Russian culture, everything Russian is under attack on Kiev-controlled territory. We all know that, isn't it? I mean, internet is full of videos, factual evidences of that, right? And I mean, when it comes to Orthodox Church, canonic Orthodox Church was banned, by the way. I mean, Western media may never say nothing about it, but canonic Orthodox Church is banned in Kiev-controlled territory, and churches and cathedrals have been taken forcefully by these criminals that represent this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. And another key point that Lavrov highlighted is that Ukraine must accept the international recognition of Russia's sovereignty over the Crimea, Sevastopol, Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, and Kherson and Zaporozhye regions. So it's not just Crimea that Western media and Western politicians are trying to paint now as a main, topic of negotiations. No, it's not just Crimea, by the way. It's all new regions of the Russian Federation that has to be recognized as a part of Russia because it is part of Russia. It's just factual, and sooner this objective reality will be recognized, the better. Lavrov also emphasized that commitments made by Kiev must be legally binding, enforceable, and permanent. He also stated that Russian broader demands include the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, the lifting of Western sanctions, the withdrawal of legal claims and arrest warrants against Russian officials, and the return of Russian assets frozen abroad in collective West countries. Moscow is additionally seeking reliable security guarantees against threats created by the hostile actions of NATO, European Union, and their member states along Russia's western border. So this is official position of Russia, so there is no need to speculate on that. Sooner US leadership or Western ruling class comes to these terms, faces the reality, the better. There will be less casualties and less damage done, less destruction. But as far as I understand, at this point, either US leadership nor globalists in Europe are ready to acknowledge objective reality. So therefore, unfortunately, most likely, through the escalation, we will see another phase of escalation and maybe even several phases of escalation. Unfortunate, but that's the reality as far as I can tell. And when it comes to threats that NATO is generating, by the way, or the collective West, we have statement from aide of Russian President Patrushev, who said that NATO is practicing scenarios for seizing the Kaliningrad region of the Russian Federation and also strikes on Russian nuclear arsenal, by the way, which is on its own enough reason, in my personal opinion, to actually take preemptive strikes on enemy forces that are preparing for such actions against you. Maybe Russian leadership has different take on situation, but anyways, this is extremely dangerous for sure. The North Atlantic Alliance is practicing scenarios involving the seizure of Kaliningrad region and the preemptive strikes on nuclear arsenal during exercises near the Russian border. This was warned in an interview with the TASS by Nikolai Patrushev, aide to the Russian president and head of the naval collegium. We have quotes here. For the second year in a row, NATO is conducting the largest exercises in recent decades near our borders, where it is practicing scenarios of offensive actions over the large area from Vilnius to Odessa the seizure of the Kaliningrad region, blocking shipping in the Black and the Baltic Seas, and preemptive strikes on their permanent basis of Russian nuclear deterrent forces, he said. Patrushev drew attention to the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's threats towards Russia with their questionable power of the long dead British fleet and the nuclear weapons on board its submarines. He is echoed by Ursula von der Leyen, Mark Rutte, and other functionaries, other bureaucrats in Europe. And by the way, as I already said, this information, I mean, this is factual, isn't it? This is factual. NATO is preparing large-scale escalation in Russia, and therefore no one should be surprised. At least no one should be surprised if Russian side is also preparing to defend itself, and during these preparations, if preemptive strikes are also prepared, outlined which direction, what exactly has to be hit to make sure that enemy would not have a technical means to attack Russia. Extremely dangerous stuff. So therefore, I don't know, man. People in the West should wake up until it's just too late. Ordinary people like us, by the way, should wake up as soon as possible in the West until it's too late, because globalists, these total psychos, by the way, actually might provoke a larger war with Russia, and we all know what that means. In that case, Russia will operate very differently than it is operating now in this former Soviet Republic and name of Ukraine. Russia will use all its force, right? And that means nuclear force. And we don't want this to happen, right? Russia will have no option but to demilitarize with the preemptive strikes, to demilitarize main forces in hands of globalists, which is France and UK, and their nuclear arsenals. And to do so, Russia might have no option at some point if West continues to escalate, but to take preemptive strikes and basically neutralize not just nuclear capabilities of France and UK, but also Navy that they have, Air Force that they have, and military industrial complex that they have. So you can imagine what kind of force will be necessary to achieve this. And if it comes to it, for Russian missiles, by the way, it's different type of missiles will have different time of approach, but it's from 10 to 15 minutes to 30 to 40 minutes, and that's about it. None of these countries, by the way, France, UK, and I guess Germany may also be neutralized. None of these countries will have military capabilities. And US will stay away. If you think US will get involved, you are mistaken. US will stay away. Because direct war between Russia and US will mean end of everything. Literally. End of civilization. And I don't think whoever is in charge there in US would want to die. And US is already drifting away little by little, but they are clearly drifting away from Europe and the globalists. Although, by the way, globalists have a strong grip on US still, US administration, since the inauguration of the Trump, is under heavy assault, right? Inside US and from outside of US, from Europe. And therefore, I'm not quite sure that Trump's administration will actually manage to distance themselves or to gain at least some level of independence from the globalists. But they are trying, kind of, right? So let's hope globalists will come to their senses and will not escalate. Otherwise, Russia will just have no option but to take action. Why should Russia wait until West will strike when preemptive actions can be taken and threats can be minimized, right? It's simple as that. If war is inevitable, then it's better to strike first and minimize military capabilities of your enemy. If you're 100% convinced that your enemy is about to strike you. And seems like NATO and especially European NATO member states that are run by globalists are actually preparing for wider war against Russia and for strikes on Russia, as Patrushev is saying. And that's good enough reason, strong enough reason, let's say, for preemptive strikes to be taken by Russian side against enemies. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that anti-Trump liberals projected to win elections in Canada. So Prime Minister Mark Carney, the liberals are projected to form their fourth consecutive government in Canada, according to CBC Decision Desk and CTV News. Carney centered his campaign on attacking US President Donald Trump over tariffs and Trump's suggestion that Canada could become America's 51st state. According to CTV, preliminary results from the Sunday's snap election shows the Liberals winning 89 seats in the House of Commons, while their Conservatives are projected to win 77. A total of 172 seats is required to form a majority government. The elections were called after Justin Trudeau, the Liberal Prime Minister for nearly a decade, announced his resignation in January. And well, what can I say there? If people of Canada wants these puppets of globalists to be in charge there, that's their decision, by the way. If they are happy with the state of Canada, then okay. Okay, but well, this is not gonna end well for Canada, by the way. I can tell you that, in my personal opinion. Anyways, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that state of emergency was declared in Spain due to these blackouts that was, according to some reports, caused some atmospheric phenomenon. Although some media outlets in the West and some public figures jumped straight away on the topic of foreign interference, and they were happy to blame Russia, as they always are. I mean, and some might still continue, by the way, to blame Russia, even for some of natural phenomenon that caused some lines to malfunction, high voltage lines. But anyways, according to reports, in Portugal and Spain, mainly situation is resolved and electricity is back to cities. But still in many areas, there is still outages of electricity, and the local authorities are working to deal with this issue. But it was something big, yesterday. It was a big deal for sure. TASS news agency is also reporting that Iran's Shahid Rajaei port blast caused by negligence, according to Interior Ministry. We all are familiar with these developments. Biggest port in Iran suffered massive explosions and the fire, and there was different speculations on internet. What was the cause? Was it a strike or something else? And negligence was the cause of the explosion at Iran's Shahid Rajaei port. Iran's interior minister Iskander Momeni has stated, so I guess this is the case. Unfortunately, over 1,000 people were harmed and dozens of people were killed as a result of this emergency in Iranian port. Also, very disturbing news is coming from global south. India's military incursion into Pakistan is imminent, according to Pakistan's defense minister Kawala Asif. Pakistan is on high alert, but will use its nuclear weapons only if there is a direct threat to existence of this country. He told Reuters. By the way, because this is Reuters, I said this yesterday during the live stream on Rumble too, because it's Reuters. We should take this information with a pinch of salt. They might misrepresent statements of Pakistan's defense minister. And some other outlets actually did, because there were reports that this person Asif has stated that it's only like 2 or 3 days before war starts between Pakistan and India. But then he himself rejected this claim while saying that media actually misrepresented what he was saying. So therefore, I don't know if in this particular case this statement is correct or not, but we can only hope that these two nuclear powers will manage to de-escalate and there will be no all-out war between their sides that will endanger not just people of two countries but entire world. Although, by the way, I can see possibility that India might conduct some special military operation to neutralize terrorist organizations that are operating against India from Pakistani soil. Such an operation was done relatively recently, a couple of years ago, by India, when terrorist camps were destroyed as a result of aerial strikes. Mirage 2000 planes at that point was deployed to enter Pakistani airspace and take action against the terrorist camps. And something similar might happen now also. India well enough capable of such special military operations or any type of operations basically. But when it comes to all-out war, I think risk is there, but I don't think war is inevitable. Hopefully sides will manage to de-escalate. Also, dear friends, when it comes to some emergency situations, yesterday many media outlets, including in the US, start reporting that US FA-18 plane failed from a Harry Truman aircraft carrier, and the report was that aircraft carrier was forced to take a steep turn, and during this turn, to avoid a Houthi strike, to avoid a Houthi missile or drone, and during this maneuver that carrier was conducting, one of the planes fell off the border. I mean, maybe this is the case, by the way. Hard to tell. Or maybe some of their missiles or drones from Houthis actually reached the carrier itself and destroyed the plane. Hard to tell, but minus FA-18 in air fleet of Harry Truman. TASS News Agency is also reporting that, well, when it comes to military equipment, by the way, take a look at these numbers. World military spending in 2024 was up by 9.4% to $2.7 trillion. $2.7 trillion humanity is spending to kill each other. In 21st century, by the way. Do I have to say anything at all on this? That's where we are, by the way. We love to call ourselves civilization. We are so civilized, of course. And we are spending as much as we can to kill other humans. It's shame. It's shame that for whatever reasons, humanity is unable to live in peace and just be good. But it is what it is. TASS News Agency, meanwhile, is reporting that China's foreign minister stated that US trade concessions will only whet their appetite. So concessions to the United States in the trade war will lead to them continuing to make new demands. This was stated by the Chinese foreign minister Yang Yi at the meeting of the BRICS foreign ministers in Rio de Janeiro. And he has a point, I guess. The US is trying to bully countries worldwide into submission, and some countries will submit because they have no power to resist, but China definitely will resist and maybe even come up in a better place after this trade war. And so therefore, yes, I can see logic behind the Chinese foreign minister's statement. Bullies can understand only one language. We all know that, isn't it? and it is what it is, man. This is just how life operates. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that Lavrov calls BRICS single currency issue premature. The consideration of the issue of the single BRICS currency has been postponed due to the lack of suitable economic conditions, but their active use of national currencies is already widespread, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told the O Globo newspaper. And this is quite unfortunate, by the way. But I said many times before that I think the world desperately needs alternative financial and banking system, alternative to their extremely weaponized Western one. And the world desperately needs alternative world reserve currencies. But seems like inside the BRICS there is some frictions. Countries are not yet able to find common ground when it comes to this one currency, single currency of the BRICS, and therefore there are some setbacks in this direction. Although Lavrov is correct when it comes to bilateral trade between the countries in local currencies, volume is increasing big time. So much so that, by the way, process of de-dollarization is escalating on monthly basis. Right, so yes, it is true that trade in national currency is increasing, but we need alternative financial and the banking system. I mean humanity, by the way. We need alternative financial and the banking system, alternative payment systems, alternative reserve currency. It's just necessary. RT, meanwhile, is reporting, and I will end this update on this kind of funny news, by the way, that Trump is saying that he runs the world. So US President Donald Trump has claimed he is now running not only his country, but the whole world, and is having a lot of fun with his second presidential term. And, lately, jokingly or not, but Trump is making quite a lot of statements that barely makes any sense, and his advisors, by the way, should tell him that he should be a little more careful with his language. Otherwise, it will not take too long before, first of all, his enemies, and then everyone else will start questioning his mental health. It is what it is, isn't it? I mean, so advisors of Trump should do their job properly, for God's sake, man, and tell him that he should be a little more serious if he can. I mean, to say that you run the world even while joking around, it's quite stuff, man. When you are president, it don't really looks adequate, man. But anyways, let's end this update on that, dear friends. Relatively short update. Hopefully you'll find it informative and interesting, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary on both platforms, on YouTube and Rumble. It will help to deal with the algorithm. If you can, please share video with your friends, or the information about the existence of my channel. That might also help to reach wider audience. Well, before I go, let me just notice that this project is completely independent, by the way. Exists only as long as it has your support. So if you like my work, if you like my channels, please consider to support. You can do it through several means, through donation, through PayPal platform or Boosty platform, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can also become a premium subscriber on Rumble, by the way, during the streams. You can support during the streams with donations through Rumble. So there are several means actually to support this project that you can choose from, including crypto. So all the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. And dear friends, before I go, today evening, in a couple of hours time, I will have a second update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And this evening at 7 o'clock, live stream on Rumble with all the latest news that will be reported here in Russia on major topics. So I hope you'll join.